conversation throughout. We're getting to it. We're getting to it.
Well, most times threats are being made to the
I would
victim.
hate to think that there is no support in the house
Hey
of
you
God.
guys, how you doing? Welcome back. Welcome back to Nicola Land and welcome back to the series of Battered. Y'all, we have been having a really great conversation and today the conversation is only continuing. We welcome back Kiana, welcome back Angie, and we also welcome back Pastor Martin. So nice to have you guys again. All right, we're gonna go jump right into it. Today we're having the conversation about why women stay. Now we would have hinted about this conversation throughout. We're getting to it. We're getting to it. We're at it today. Why do women stay in abusive relationships? We're gonna start with you, Angie. Why do women stay?
There are many reasons why women stay in abusive relationships, and for some people it may be trivial, but to the victim it is meaningful because for them sometimes they have a goal to accomplish. For example, you have women stay because of their children, especially if the children are young and they need both the parents at the time, because in spite of how the abuser may inflict abuse on the victim, there are some qualities about him that the children likes and they can relate to. You have unemployment, which is one of the needs. When you are unemployed, you are financially dependent on your partner. And this is one of the main reasons why women remain in abusive relationships, because it is very hard, especially when there is no support. How would I feed my children? How would I send them to school? How will I provide them with their basic needs, their essentials, and these are two of the reasons. I will not go on to all because I know I have to share. So
Thank you for being kind. Let's jump to Kiana. Why do women stay, Kiana?
Okay, so women stay most times because of fear, also because sometimes, well, most times threats are being made to the victim. If you tell anybody, I'll kill you. If you tell, if you tell anybody, I will do this and that. Or sometimes the abuser may threaten to expose things about the victim. It could be personal pictures or any details or anything. They could use anything against the victim to make them feel like they're in charge. So of course, if you know your partner has some or knows your secrets, let's just say secrets, you would want your partner to keep those things between the two of yours. So if the threats are being made, obviously because of fear of those things being exposed on social media and all of those other things, is a reason why women stay. Also, there's intimidation. The abuser might intimidate the victim. And again, I think in some earlier videos I mentioned that there's a stigma attached to domestic violence. So there's shame. The victim feels ashamed or embarrassed to even say, I am being abused. And also the victim might think it's normal behavior. In the last video, Pastor Martin mentioned that in some relationships, certain things might seem normal, and Angie also mentioned it, learned behavior. So in those kind of relationships where it's toxic, the victim might think that this is normal behavior and they will stay. I'll pass on to Pastor Martin to give us some as well.
Wow, I didn't think there was more after that. Let's go, Pastor Martin.
Yeah, I'll just throw one more in there that is actually more common than we think, and that's cultural upbringing. Yeah, there are certain cultures where leaving the marital home is not allowed. So even if the victim leaves and even go to a place of refuge, family members will actually say to that person, go back to your husband.
yes.
Yeah, knowing that abuse is happening, and some of the things would be, well, he's going to stop. How it go look on the family? Yeah, and it's a norm. So the shame or the cultural norm of not leaving the marital home and also bearing with your abuse. Yeah. And that comes with the cycle of abuse within cultures. So mother would have experienced abuse from the father, grandmother would have experienced it, and this is something common. So they'll give the this new victim now tips to how to limit the abuse or not upset the abuser, but go back to the household. So the victim now feels, I would say, less than or out of place if they even think about leaving the household, because that's not the norm in their culture.
You know, and you mentioned that so well. There is another thing in same line with you. There is prestige, class. Sometimes, yeah, there are many others. Sometimes you stay just because of a name. You are accustomed with a certain lifestyle, so you do not want to leave it. You know that people see that you're no longer able to keep to a certain standard, and you prefer to stay there and be abused, you know, just to carry the name, to drive that beautiful car, to live in that beautiful home, and you forget about the pain. Because you know what you say? It is just temporary. He does it sometimes. I get him upset. You have self-blaming, victimization, and you know, the list goes on.
And to add one more thing to what you're saying, this is something that is not really talked about, but disability. Sometimes the victim might be disabled in some way and they're dependent on that person to take care of them. Their physical needs too need to be met. Just simple things like taking them for a shower and all of those simple things. And because there's no support system, most times within the cycle of abuse from the victim side, there's no support, because sometimes at a point when family members and friends are aware of what's going on, they give up, and so the victim doesn't have any support. So if that person is disabled, just imagine if you have to depend on your abuser to provide, you know, basic things like taking a shower or giving you a meal, and they don't have a choice because there's no other person around and they're stuck in that situation, and you know, they feel like it's hopeless. They're hopeless, and so that's another reason why women stay.
Very good point.
Let's talk about church. Now, all believers, now you're just kidding around it. I see Pastor Martin touch culture. Let's talk about church. Why do women in church stay in abusive relationships?
We should have had a witness.
And the pastor speaks.
Well, I see that Nicola was very passionate when she came with that one. Now we must recognize each church, and when I say church, I'm speaking about denominations now. You'll recognize that if you raise this topic, there is an indigenous chorus from everyone about this topic. Why? Because it's not isolated to one denomination. Some denominations have advanced beyond it, but generally there was a sort of a theology within the church in terms of the woman being submissive. And some persons now use submissive and turn it into oppressive. Yeah. So that now, in the mind of an immature man, that type of scripture could be very dangerous. Yeah. In the mind of an immature man. And then, well, of course, we have the natural facade where persons don't want to show that they are going through anything. So you're ashamed to raise it in church because of how other persons may look at you. You may be in a church where the culture is submit. So you get in licks, submit, and the submission will deal with it. You may be in a church where the culture is just pray about it and something will happen, it will work out. Yeah, so it's sometimes the mindset of that particular church, because I don't want to blanket all churches, but the mindset of that particular church or even the individuals within the church may create an environment for abusers to reign and for it to be kept hush hush.
And I think also when it comes to the church environment, for a while now, domestic violence wasn't something that was talked about in church. It was something that was kept a secret. And I like Pastor Martin said, culture in certain homes, you're not allowed to speak on certain situations, far less taking it to the church. And if at any point church members maybe have witnessed a partner being abusive in the church environment, because these are things that has happened, people stay out of it. It's not my business. This is a husband and wife, let them deal with the situation by themselves. This is something that has happened, in the church culture. And again, not just the submissive part, but the fact that a lot of times I've heard men quote the women are the weaker vessels. So they also use that as a way to get women to be submissive and say, you have no say, you cannot do anything. I'm the head. They use that a lot. I am the head of. So they also use that as a way to get women to be submissive and say, you have no say, you cannot do anything. I'm the head. They use that a lot. I am the head of the house. I'm the head. And I'm very passionate about these two scriptures. I really am, because I feel like this is being misquoted a lot in the church community, and that needs to be revisited. Women are not slaves, but they're women, a helpmate, as the scripture says. And we need to talk about it in church. We need to educate our young people, not just our young people, but also others, because like I said in the last video, there might not be physical abuse going on, but there might be social, there might be economical, there might be verbal abuse going on. And again, if those things,
financial,
yes, and if those things seems normal, because back in the day, women had to stay home, they had to be housewives. And then now it's like, oh, modern women want to go and work and all of those things. And these are things that happen within the church culture, and it's not talked about, but we need to talk about it. We need to open up about it, and we need to be honest as to the reality of DV in whatever form that it comes, be it verbal, physical, whatever form that it comes. We need to talk about it.
The most heartbreaking thing that could be said to a victim from the church, and I'm saying from the leaders to be precise, you made a vow, till death do you part, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse. And they like to stress on the better for worse. But let me tell you, I will always tell anybody that I'm aware that is in any relationship that is unhealthy, I tell them, put on their running shoes and move. Because God is love. And with love, there is no pain. It's not supposed to be. Love does not hurt. So at no point can somebody make me believe that I am in a relationship and I am in pain and I am loved. That's impossible. Impossible, because God is love. And yes, we need to sensitize people, and that's what our aim is for this series, to sensitize people, to help them become aware, because some of these cases are so chronic that they see no way out. They have accepted it because I've been in it for so long. If I change now, I will lose my spouse, I will lose my partner. How am I going to make it through? But I am saying today, trust God. Trust God. He always makes a way where there seems to be no way. So whatever information you are getting today, take heed and seek God's intervention as well as counseling intervention, so that you could get out of your chronic situation.
And I also want us to know that just because we believe in God, it does not mean that we do not need outside help. It does not mean that the institutions that provide help, it does not mean that there is not help, because truth be told, God has his people everywhere. Everywhere. There may be counselors in your church. There may be counselors also from the church who work in these institutions. So God makes a way. You know, sometimes we put God in a box and we think that he's only present within the confinement of the building, the church building, but his people are everywhere. We all have gifts and talents from him, and there's nothing wrong with getting help from outside institutions, because the sad thing is the church does not provide any support for domestic violence. No support at all. So if there's no support from the church, what is the victim left to do? Just stay there.
Yeah. You say that with such conviction. Let me just interject a little bit and use minimal instead. Minimal.
Okay.
Because I would hate to think that there is no support in the house of God. I would hate to think so. So let's just say minimal.
Okay. I love the reality of this conversation. I love that you're being so honest, that we're speaking our mind. This is what this conversation is. The transparency here is great. Yeah, I have two questions. Although you kind of answered my last question, which is what kind of help is there for the victim? But before we go into that, I want to just briefly touch on. Now, you know, in drug, there are drug addicts, right? And then there are enablers. There are people who create the environment for the victim to stay in. And I'm not just talking about the abuser. I want you guys to touch on that. People who, and for example, we just spoke about the church. Because of the culture in the church, you know, no, don't, you cannot leave. That's not an option. Touch on other examples where people create an environment for that woman to stay in an abusive relationship.
Well, a false sense of security. Yeah. There are many reasons also, and I even as you're touching the church, I know this one example where the young lady would have been experiencing a level of abuse before marriage, and the result from the pastor is that we're going to pray about it and it's going to be over with. Go ahead, go forward. So it's a false sense of security, and only after it was realized that there was a level of gain that that individual would have received by making this particular connection. Yeah. So we recognize that, as I believe my colleague there said, that we can't pretend, as people of God, we need to recognize that help comes from many different ways, and we need to be wise enough also to know when something doesn't sound real. Yeah, when something doesn't sound real. So sometimes the church could create that environment, one, because especially well, not especially, most churches do not promote sex before marriage. So our plaster to that is go and get married. Yeah. So the person may come and say, you may meet a couple that is living together. They are saying, hey, we're experiencing some level of abuse. And our mind gets so heavenly one time that we believe that the result for that is for them to get married. Yeah? And not dealing with the elephant in the room is that maybe these two people shouldn't be together in the first place. But all we are seeing is what sometimes we promote in the church as the big sin and the small sin. Yeah? So the main thing that we saw out of that entire scenario is that these two people are living together and they're not married. Not recognizing that you have just put these two individuals into greater challenges because you're putting two persons that are not ready for marriage. You're putting someone who was already a victim of violence, and you're basically locking them in, to me, in a deeper cell. Yeah. So as the church, we really have to be mindful to be responsible with the lives of others, recognizing that as a church, we have the responsibility. Persons look to the church as a source of wisdom, advice, and guidance. Yeah? And because we have that great weight as a community, we have to be responsible with it to ensure that we use wisdom and guide persons to the best of our ability through the help of the scriptures and the Spirit of the Lord.
Thank you so much. There's so much more that could be said about different enablers, like parents, how they create an environment, friends create an environment, that they possibly create an environment where the victim stays, and a lot of it would probably come back to a false sense of security. Sometimes it has to do with just for gain, that's where the money is, so it'll change, or if different people have just so many different ideas, but at the end of the day, I think the point I really want to drive home is that someone's life could be at risk. So we need to just be so careful, from the church going down to the friend, the parents, the brother, the sister. We need to just be so careful with the advice that we give, especially in things we know nothing about, when we're not really informed about things. And if you don't know how to help somebody, find someone who could help them, but don't just pick from a closed mindset.
And I just want to underscore, but somebody who may be watching this, if you're experiencing abuse outside of marriage, do not believe that marriage is going to fix that, and do not let anybody tell you the intervention to that abuse is marriage. Yeah, if you are experiencing abuse outside of marriage, the intervention to that abuse is not marriage. You're in a prime position now to run even faster than you can.
Right. Yes.
Another thing I want to say, if you're a victim of abuse now and you've not gotten married, the answer is not to pray and get married. If you pray, wait for God to answer the prayer. Otherwise, myself, I run. Let me just run. Pray for that person and then run. Let this person find whoever God is delivering them for. This is life and death we're talking about. Don't go in and say, I'm not saying you shouldn't exercise faith, but walk with your faith to the other side of the road, to the next person God has in store for you. Now, this is all the time that we have. I don't know if you have any closing remarks. I just want Kayana to say her 3 words for me, because it's so necessary as we go through this series. It's so necessary for that person who stays, who wants to leave but can't really leave.
Okay, before I get into that, there's one thing I want to stress on that's very important to all the viewers, including myself and my colleagues as well. If we know of someone who is in the situation and we know that we're not equipped to help, refer. If you know somebody who is able to help with that situation, referrals are very, very important. If you know of a counselor, but always remember that confidentiality is key. Keep it between you and the victim, because you wouldn't want to share something. A victim comes to you and they share their business with you, and then you go and tell Peter, and then Peter go and tell Jane, and Jane go and tell Harry. That causes more pain to the abuser and even to the victim. Just imagine what the victim would be waiting for when they get home. So please, referrals are very important.
Can I say referrals? I love referrals, but that's not the word I'm looking for.
I know.
That's not the word. Pastor Martin, please tell me, what words am I looking for?
Support.
That's right.
Support. Yo, we need to be each other's keeper in order for that victim to even start leaving that relationship, there must be a level of support that is provided even whilst they are in the relationship. They need to have somewhere to go. They need safe hands. Let's go, Pastor Matthew.
Yeah, I just want to say also for the perpetrators, I don't want us to leave with or give the idea that the perpetrator cannot change. Yeah, as long as there's life, there is hope. So even if you're watching and you yourself are struggling with tendencies to be abusive, that is just a cry showing that there is something happening there and you also need support. Yeah. So we also want to create a safe space for the perpetrator to get help, because by that we could also limit the amount of victims that we have out there. So the support, the perpetrator also needs a level of help and intervention as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for making that point. So to the perpetrators, I would like to say, there's counseling for you too, you know. You could come and say it's for a friend and keep coming and say it's for a friend. You could, whatever cover you need to use. And if you really want to help yourself, you will come. This is hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm not doing it right now, but I'm struggling with it. I have the tendency to do it. I keep go to the same social counselor, the same social workers that help the victims. There are other social workers, I'm sure, that help the perpetrator too. Find help for yourself. We love you all too. We love the victims, but we also love the perpetrators. You know, God loves everybody. But we just want to say we like protect the victims from all these licks you're trying to give. But yeah. So y'all, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Kiana, Angie, and Pastor Dominic for availing themselves and for sharing this information. I'm so grateful. I'm sure the viewers are grateful. I'm learning a lot, as I know they are. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that we're here. Y'all know all the good stuff to do. Go ahead and do it now. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.